Hey, it's Coach Vic, Certified Land Investor. Glad to be here with you. Today, I'm going to talk about how your past vacation experiences can give you ideas on how to sell the current land parcels that you have. Now, there's times when we pick land and we think that the area that we pick is going to be a great one. It's going to have a lot of interested people. All the things are going to work in our favor. We actually go through the whole process of acquiring the property. We put it on the market and crickets. Now, is it that the area is bad? Maybe, but most likely you're probably not making like the public interested in the property that you have. So it's not enticing enough, and the basics of how much, where is it, is this a good deal, and what can I do with it isn't enough, especially on certain platforms like Facebook, for example. So what can you do to kind of get people interested? Well, let's see how you can improve your ad copy. Now, this is something that a lot of people like to fake. And they'll do like the very typical real estate investor thing. Not even real estate investor, just real estate agents. Where they're like, oh, this beautiful property is a handyman's dream. And, get your secluded paradise and things like that. Like, that doesn't really do it for a lot of people. So what we're going to do is talk about all the different ways that we can actually add a little bit more spice into our listings. All right, you guys ready? So first thing I want you to picture this. You're on vacation, right? Maybe you saved up a long time so you actually have all this money you can play with. You can travel first class, all the great things. You get to your destination, wherever it is. As you are going from the airport to your hotel or your resort, you can kind of see a little bit about the local area, area you're not too familiar with, especially from a different country. And you're like, okay, great. Oh, they have a McDonald's. We have McDonald's. Oh, that's cool. Oh, okay, this is where they get their nails done. Oh, I get my nails done. All that stuff, right? You get to your hotel. The concierge is really polite, really pleasant. The surrounding is beautiful. Everything is picturesque. And then let's just imagine that concierge helps you check in. And as soon as you check in, they ask you, hey, could you write a review about our hotel? And you're like, that's a little odd. I just got here. I don't really know much about it. But because you so far had a positive experience about the hotel, and maybe your little Uber ride or your taxi ride to your hotel was probably not too bad, and you got to see some sights that you haven't seen before, you probably could muster up a decent review about the hotel in the area. Why am I asking you to imagine this? Because, well, that's kind of how we're going to add the spice to an area. Now, there are 3 ways that I've seen that can help you do that, to give you that experience of being in a new area, to give you that excitement where you can think of the positive parts and ignore anything that may have been negative or whatever it is, all right? So, first thing that you can do to help do that is use Google Maps. Now, as you know, we use Google Maps all the time to locate a property, to kind of scope out an area, to kind of see how this property relates to like roadsides and ease of use and all these other things. Well, you can do the same thing to kind of see a more general picture about that whole vicinity. What do I mean by that? Well, there are times where you can actually put the little yellow man and do like a Google Maps like Street View or whatever. And when you do that, you can kind of move the camera around, see the surrounding areas, get a better sense of what is going on, like as if you were actually there. Now, obviously, it's not no replacement for being there in person, and not every place you have will have that street view access. However, the places that you can will probably be like the downtown areas of the nearest town, major roadways, highways, things of that nature. And then when you do that, you can kind of get a good feel. Okay, is this more of a sleepy town? Is it more bustling? Is it more run down? Is it been well taken care of, like the storefronts and things of that nature? Gives you an idea of like what type of people live in this area. You can also try to see the different reviews of the different restaurants that are nearby. Again, this may be 30 miles away from your actual property, but it's still in the vicinity of where your property is, especially if your property is a little bit more remote, right? So you're looking at different reviews, you're looking at different pictures, you're looking at what different parks, you're looking at any natural scenery like lakes or mountain ranges, campsites, you name it, right? Just a different outdoor things, and using just Google Maps, just seeing what's available, what is there, What are people excited about? Now, it may not be a lot of excitement, but you get what I'm saying. And using that, you can kind of get a good idea of what's happening. Now, what you should do is start to like read the reviews, understand what people are saying. If it's a restaurant, see what type of cuisine it is. See if it's actually well made. See if it's like authentic or it's just kind of weird. Like, you know, you can have, there's nothing stopping you from having like fresh sushi in like the middle of America, like Kansas or something. You think like, well, there's no water nearby. You have to ship it and all that. But anyway, it could still be a Japanese person who moved to Kansas that wants to do sushi. You can still have good sushi there. But so why am I bringing this up? Just so you can kind of see like, well, is this authentic to the area or did somebody like import it, right? So just because it's good doesn't mean it's like authentic. See what the people in the area like, type of things like that. And you're starting to understand, all right, these are the people who live here. These are the things that they like. This is the area that I invested in. Okay, great. What else would somebody find exciting about that? All right. Now, not every place has a review. But the ones that do, just give you an insight to, again, what people are thinking, what's going on in their minds, what do they care about in the area, at least when it comes to entertainment and dining and things like that. Now, some places may have shitty reviews, but it'll still give you a positive clue to the area, right? So maybe the business or the restaurant in question has bad reviews because it's dirty or something like that. Well, that kind of tells you what do people expect in that area, right? They don't put up with crap. They don't want dirt or dirty places. They like clean and pristine areas. So that means when you are advertising your property, you can advertise, hey, look how clean and pristine this area is. The natural beauty of the area. There's no junk on my lot. There's no neighbors with junk, so you ain't got to worry about that. The lot has already been cleared. Things of that nature that will be more important in some areas than it will be in others. Am I making sense? All right, good. Bonus tip. If you have one of these, right? This is an Oculus headset, VR. There is a Google Earth app that you can use with this to kind of street view, but instead of moving your mouse on your computer or your laptop or whatever, you use the VR, you can kind of look around and actually feel like you're there. Kinda, right? It's a pretty neat thing. I've used it to scope out some areas myself, and it does help me understand what it's like to be there on a certain level, right? It gives you a little bit more of an in-person experience. Now, you don't need to do this, to use this, to have that. You can use your phone. There's ways you can use your phone where you do it like this, and it's like the phone acts like a little window into this virtual world where you can kind of look around. So you just use Google Maps on your phone. You can have the same effect. There's Google Cardboard. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Or again, just be on your desktop, use your mouse, adjust the camera angle, all that stuff. It'll help. All right, so far it's making sense? Is it good? Cool. Let's go to the second way that you can do to find out the different ways to add spice and understand what people want in a property so you can add it to your listings. And that is looking at local tourism web pages. Tourism web pages. Now, no matter what, every town, every county, every area has some kind of attractions web page, or like, what's happening now. Why? Because they need people to attend these events. They need people to attend these events so they can actually make money, the town or the county, so they can, actually run themselves. Obviously, the people who are in the area want people to attend events so they have things to do, or if they have a business there, they get more patronage, or just so that they can just have something that they're proud of, right? So, for example, the thing to do may not be like a world-class thing. They may just have a local chili cook-off. Or maybe it's a live music event or something like that. It may not have big bands, but smaller bands, local bands from the area, things like that. Now, why is that important? Well, not only to show what the attractions are that you can actually use in your ads. Hey, not far from the local chili cook-off, every Thursday we got live bands, things like that, which will, you can put in your ads. It will also give you another idea of what the people in the area find valuable. What do they like? What do they think is important? So you can use that in your ads. So if, for example, we'll go back to the chili cook-off thing. If they like chili, or they like it enough to have a local event that happened every year, every month, or whatever it is, perhaps they're into farming. Perhaps they're into just fresh ingredients. Perhaps they're just into having a place where they can have their RV and mobile home so they can come for that event, set up shop, do what they got to do, enjoy the event, and then go back home. So this is more like a vacation destination. It's just not a traditional destination that you expect, like on the beach or in the mountains or something like that. Making sense? Now, when you're doing these things, you may not be able to find the web pages easily. Maybe you use like an Expedia or something like that. You just type in things to do in blank. You name the county, you name the area. Now, sometimes the area that you picked may be overshadowed by a bigger area, a more popular area. It doesn't always work that way, but it may happen. Let's just say you're doing something in Pahrump, Nevada, or you want Pahrump, Nevada, and you say things to do in Pahrump, and then maybe Las Vegas listings or Las Vegas things comes up, right? Don't let that discourage you. Yes, you can use that information because, hey, we're not far from Vegas. It's only a short drive. You know, it's actually an hour, but whatever it is. Also good for the listings. But if you keep digging, you'll find other things in the area that you can actually highlight. And again, you can still also say, hey, we're not too far from this other bigger attraction that you also may like, that you can make a whole thing out of it. All right? Now, one thing to remember about this is that sometimes it's more important what the events say about the area than it does the event itself. So I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier about what people may find valuable, what people may find interesting, but it gives you another clue on what a local person in the area thinks about the area, thinks about what's important, so that way you can kind of say the right things to pinpoint the different triggers that's going to get them interested in your property. Is that you guys get me? I think you're getting me. All right, cool. So last thing that we could talk about that's going to help you find the different angles and things that make your ad spicing and interesting and all that good stuff. Local papers, bloggers, and maybe talking to locals themselves. Now, depending on the area, you might get a lot of people writing about a particular area. Maybe not a lot, maybe a handful of different bloggers talking about certain things. Some people who are like to get away from it all, they might blog about the experiences in the area that you picked. Even if it's not even the area that you picked, they still might write about a similar area to yours. They don't got to be close. Why is that important? Well, a lot of times these bloggers are usually a little bit more gifted with words than the rest of us because that's what they do. So there are times where I would take something that they said and use it and flip it around a little bit to make sense for my area. So instead of saying like, oh, this is your nice rustic retreat, right? You can actually use a phrase or a sentence or a actual experience somebody else. It's like that kind of says the same thing. So it says, hey, when you wake up at 5 a.m. for that morning hike and you notice, I don't know what, let's just say deer are out at 5 a.m. I don't really know. You notice that deer dining on foliage right outside your cabin window. It sets the tone for blah, 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 blah. See how I was a little bit wordy because I was kind of thinking of things on the fly, but it actually says something a little bit better than just plainly stating it, right? So a lot of bloggers and stuff like that, they can definitely help you get an idea of what you can actually be, how to say things in a different way that's a little bit more enticing. Now, do not go overboard with this because they're not here to read a blog, right? They're here to see your listing to see if your property is going to fit their needs. Now, again, if you're on Facebook or something like that where they're not necessarily looking for property, they're there for other reasons, then it's okay to be a little bit more long-winded. If it is interesting, it has to be interesting, right? People don't mind reading if they're enjoying what they read. Like, when was the last time someone complained about a 3-hour movie that had them on the edge of their seat? People don't, because even though it took a long time to go through that 3-hour movie, I mean, I'm exaggerating with the length, but they were so interested in the movie, they're like, hey, I can't get enough of this. But there's times where you've probably seen a 15-minute short film or something that bored you to tears, and if that 15 minutes felt like 15 hours, because again, it was not interesting, at least not to you. So while you don't want to be long-winded, you can be a little bit if it's interesting. You get people reading, you get people commenting, you get people talking about it, so they actually attract more attention to your listings. What else can you see? Well, local papers and magazines can actually have different period pieces, or I won't call it period pieces, just pieces about the area you're talking about. They may hit upon the different events and other things that we looked up ourselves, but it's just a different way to kind of see things, and you can, again, use those wording, the way they phrase things in your listings, to kind of add a little color, add a little spice. Now, one last thing, as I mentioned before, there's people that you can talk to. Sometimes the people are the people you're buying the property from. So as you're asking questions and you're like, hey, so tell me more about your property. Why did you buy it? Why are you selling it? Things like that. A lot of people, especially if they're an older person, they want to talk to somebody. So they'll give you all the information that you want to know. Now, they may not have any information about anything recent, but they may talk about their summer with using that property as a younger person. And now all their kids are grown and they don't want it and this and that. So I've had that happen several times, and they gave me great insights of what attracted them to the area. I was able to use what they said in my ads about the property to make other people attracted to the area. So it worked out pretty well. Sometimes you talk to locals as you're selling the property, and they're asking different questions like, hey, does it have water? Does it have this? Does it have that? And then they'll tell you about things like, oh, well, last time I tried to buy a property, the county blocked me because it didn't have this, or it was too small, or whatever it is. So then you'll find more information about, okay, what is important to people? What do they worry about? Are there things that they're afraid to buy because they've been blocked before because of like rules and regulations? And then if you find out your property is exempt from all that or whatever it is, you can make that a big claim in your ad and your listing. That too will attract a lot of people to what you're doing. All right. So to recap, we got a few different ways to find different angles and ways to add spice to our listings. First, we have Google Maps. So we can kind of use that to kind of see what's there, to get a feeling of being there. Even if we've never been there, we can understand the positives about the area, about the people, and that positivity will shine brightly in your ad copy. Second is the tourism web pages. They're going to talk a lot about what's available, the different things, the different events, and they too will also put the place in a favorable light. And you can use those sentences and words directly in your ads to give it a little bit more color, a little bit more pop. And the third thing is the local papers, bloggers, magazines, similar to the different websites, except you get firsthand experience about what somebody's actually been through to actually see why this area is so great, and certain pitfalls to avoid when buying land or when you're advertising, so that you actually attract the right type of people. All right. Now, hopefully you can start to see how this all kind of plays into making a compelling ad. Obviously, there's more to it. You have to understand the structure of a good ad. You got to understand when to go on a little bit longer and really paint a picture versus when to actually just like, hey, 4 bullet points of what they need and get out. It depends. There's an art to it. All right. So also, I wanted to add this. I almost forgot. I had to stop myself. Make sure as you're doing this research, if you're finding out that the area that you picked isn't that great because you're looking at things, you're seeing what people are saying, you're hearing all these, this red tape and regulations, and you can't find a property that's not exempt from that, that can tell you need to pick a new area. Tell you that a while. If you buy a property in a new area, just buy one. Because as you're doing this research and you're putting your ads together and you're talking to people and you're learning about what's important to the area, and you find out that a lot of the things that you have in your property are things that people like to avoid for whatever reason, just things that you wouldn't have known unless you were a local, maybe after you get rid of that property, you don't buy more unless you know specifically, hey, I just got to avoid properties like this. Extremely important. So my question is to you. What do you think will happen if you have that much detail and that much love in your ad copy? How do you think people will receive it? Do you think you'll get more clicks? Do you think you'll get more views? Or do you think this is all a giant waste of time? Personally, I do think it works well. That's why I'm taking my time to tell it to you guys. But, you may have a different experience. A lot of this stuff can also work well if you are selling a previous buyer on a new area. Sometimes you got to convince them that, hey, this is a good area to invest in too. I know we've done a lot of business over here, but over there, something you may want to look into. Having these words, having these ads, having this stuff ready to go could be a great way to kind of introduce that buyer into a new area. So now you keep your buyer happy, you keep getting the money coming in, everybody wins. Okay. All right. So With that said, I think we're good here. Hopefully you got this. Obviously you guys, if you guys are on my email list, you saw me write about this a little bit briefly. So I want to put a video together so it's a little bit more concrete. And yeah, other than that, hope you guys are having a good day. It's Coach Vic. Be with you next time, whenever that is. But until then, make better ads so you can make more sales. All right, peace.